Hello guys, welcome to Child Recap, and I'm your host Chad. Today we'll be looking at a comedy action movie titled Rubber. Watch out for spoilers ahead, sit back and enjoy.
In the beginning of the movie, we see a man in a lonely place, standing with binoculars. Minutes later, a car approached him, knocking down the wooden chairs on its path. More like a driving course. The car coming to a stop, an officer comes out of the trunk. He exchanged his glasses for a glass of water. Looking straight into the camera, he explains his thoughts on movies, explaining that most things happens without reasons. He says the movie about to be shown is a homage to the No Reason. He pours the water away after his speech, entering back into the car trunk. We see he was actually addressing a group of people of different age and genders. Now gone, the man distributes the binoculars, asking everyone to turn around and enjoy what seems to be a movie. He left on his bicycle immediately after, ignoring every other questions. They all steer into the distance, anticipating a mind-blowing movie, but the little kid seems to be getting bored already. A woman sees a dump to which everyone turns their attention to. Next, we're shown a car tire. It starts moving surprisingly. It gets up, unstable, falls again. After a few attempts, it mastered the act of movement, though with some wobbles. On its way, it smashes everything on its path. Now in contact with a bottle, tries smashing it, but could not. After several attempts, it rolls back and starts vibrating rapidly. This vibration was able to break the bottle. The audience were amazed at this. Some say it's cytokinetics, while some say it's magic. A man tries filming with his camera, but a woman stops him, saying it's a crime. They all backed her up, as is considered piracy, though he was filming for his wife whom couldn't make it. The tire continues its journey of destroying everything on its path. Now at the base of a tree, staggers a bit, but falls flat, signifying it's fallen asleep. Now the next day, it gets up again and continued its journey. Back at the hill, bicycle man comes back again. He steals some cash from the sleeping observants before waking them up. He left immediately afterwards, though some complained of hunger, but were ignored. Back to the tire, it kills a rabbit on its path, which means he could also kill living things from its vibration. Rubber rides off in style, signifying it enjoys blowing up things. Now in front of a highway, a car drives by. Rubber starts vibrating itself rapidly, which made the car stop. The driver tries turning it on, but to no avail. Rubber made its way to the car, but was knocked off by a truck from behind, which was a mistake. The car starts functioning again as she drives off. The tire gets up again. It kills a bird right before it. Now, the black-haired woman drives by, cursing the truck driver in the gas station. Rubber, now faced with the truck driver, starts vibrating itself, this time blowing the man's head to pieces. Now Rubber sees the red car from earlier, indicating the black-haired woman must have lodged in the motel. It peeked through the door as the lady went into the shower. More like he was drawn by her assets, just like a man would. Does that define its gender? Meanwhile, some of the audience were mesmerized at their sight. This makes the father take his son's binoculars off, making him fight for it. They all make comments about the scene, to which the teenage girls didn't find funny, as they were distracting them. Now finished bathing, Black Hair shuts the door properly, locking Rubber out. Now sunset, Rubber spends his time in one of the vacant rooms watching television. I wonder how they could see through walls with those binoculars. That's the height of advancement. The bicycle man also stay in the same motel. He receives a phone call from his boss. He makes his boss a promise on fulfilling his demands the next day. The scene ends with him killing the turkey in his room. Now daybreak, it looks like the man on wheelchair doesn't sleep at all. The bicycle guy arrives with a prepared turkey, which they all devoured like animals. Back to the motel, the room attendant comes into the robber's room. She turns off the TV, goes into the bathroom, but was surprised to see a tire under the shower. Annoyed, she turns off the shower, throwing the Rubber outside. Rubber goes back into the room, but was seen by a kid. The kid tries telling his father what he saw, but father shuts him up, instead sending him to get him a pizza, as he was talking rubbish. His father also reminds him to get extra toppings on the pizza. Rubber on watching TV gets a sight of black hair as she walks past. Rubber follows her steering from afar. Done swimming, she walks past paying no attention to the tire. Next we see the kid adding remains from a dead bird to his dad's pizza as an extra topping. This kid really hates his father. Now, Rubber enters the swimming pool instead of floating, it sinks right to the bottom. This shows Rubber is no ordinary tire. We understand Rubber follows the actions of the black-haired lady, first the bathroom, now the pool. Back to the hill, Son starts feeling some pain in his tummy and complains to his father, which he comforts him, asking for any medical advice, to which no one has. Later, they all start feeling the same pain. The man on wheelchair wasn't in pain as he did not partake in the turkey. He says it was poisoned and it's a trap. Kid arrives at the motel, he checks the empty room, but was shocked on seeing the headless attendant. The police gets to the scene. The head of the unit was the officer at the beginning scene. The kid tries convincing the officer about the Rubber being responsible. They ignored him as his dad scolds him for taking the matter as a joke. He instructs him to get the Rubber out from the pool. The kid tries explaining himself again, but wasn't given an ear, which made his dad send him inside, also tossing the Rubber away. The officer asked Dad some questions about the attendant, which was his employee. The officer ends the conversation immediately. His alarm went off. Thanking Dad for his cooperation, the way he quickly switched mood was confusing to Dad. Back at the hill, everyone but the man on wheelchair were all dead. Now, the head officer makes an announcement to co-officers saying it's all over, congratulating others to go home to their families. They were all confused at this. He says they should drop the act as this isn't real life. They disagree with this as there's a real dead body. The officer points at a stuffed alligator in his co-officer's arm, all to prove it isn't real life. He went as far as asking an officer to shoot him. Reluctantly, an officer shoots him. Surprisingly, he's still alive as the gun wasn't a real gun. Again he tells everyone to go home. The female officer points at the dead body, to which the officer comfortably asked her to check again. He asked her to give the body a slap. This was a stupid request as she's headless. The female officer explains she's really dead as her body was cold. This time, the bicycle man arrives. He silently tells the officer about the wheelchair man that wasn't dead, and the fact he's still watching at the moment. Realizing this, the officer changes his statement, now acting like it's real life. Again asked Dad questions. Still in the conversation, Dad's head explodes right in front of the officer, confirming the kid's statement. Next, Rubber steers into the mirror, bringing back memories of his past events. Kid seating next to him tells Rubber about the police as he's in big trouble. Rubber rides off without a reply, which annoys the kid. I mean, what was he expecting? It got no mouth. Now alert, the officer explains the situation to the others as a car tire is the suspect. The kid directs the officers to the robber's location. Back to the hill, bicycle guy tries enticing the wheelchair man with food, but ends up eating it himself, which kills him afterwards. Face to face with the cops, Rubber vibrates itself rapidly, killing one of the officers. Rubber rides off to the site of numerous tires being burnt. 3 days later, streets were filled with headless corpse. This was an act of revenge from Rubber. An officer gets a sight of Rubber in a room watching television. He informs the head officer, who tells him to maintain their position as they make their way to their location. The officers use a female doll with dynamite wrapped to it as a bait on Rubber. The black-haired woman speaks through a microphone, which was connected to the speakers on the mannequin. Rubber faced with the doll, the lady tries luring it into blowing it up. They keep trying with the officer asking her to use vile words in attempt to upset Rubber. With several attempts of no response, the wheelchair man comes to the scene, giving his thoughts on the scene as it made no sense to him. He explains how they could have designated the dynamite, considering how close Rubber was. The officer in defense says the plan is to make the robber kill himself by blowing up the mannequin, which would activate the bomb. The officer says he understands and will speed things up, asking him to go back to his place. Finally, Rubber responds, blowing the mannequin's head off, which didn't activate the bomb as thought. Frustrated, the officer goes to finish up the robber. This didn't interest the wheelchair man as he wanted to see some explosions. The officer comes out with the tire completely destroyed. Seconds later, a living tricycle comes out. The wheelchair man, excited at this, calls for the officer as the rubber has reincarnated into a tricycle. Now faced with the tricycle, the man tries explaining he's not a character, but just an observant, asking the tricycle to carry on. But instead, it blows not just the man's head, but his entire body. The officers drop the girl off to her car. On leaving, she saw the tricycle which drives off, leaving her unharmed. The movie ends with the tricycle bringing to life other car tires as they all ride to Hollywood.
And that would round up today's recap. Moral of the movie: what goes around comes around, and you are not just a spectator in this life, you must also be a partaker. Thanks for sticking around. Hope to see you next time. Also, if you've not hit the like button and the subscribe button, okay,